Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for joining us today here at the 22nd edition of the World Sustainable Development Summit 2023. Before we commence the session today, a brief safety announcement during the event here at the Casuarina Hall, India Habitat Center. TERI is a health, safety, and environment certified organization. In case of any untoward incident like fire, you may evacuate from this gate, walk up the stairs to the main hall and exit from the main gate of the building. As we proceed further, it is my great privilege to host you all here on behalf of the entire World Sustainable Development Summit and TERI family. My name is Pranayana Kaushik, and I will be introducing a fantastic line of speakers for this track titled Transition to Circular Economy in the Plastic Sector. I thank each one of you for your presence here today. To begin with, I request Mr. Shoubik Bhattacharya, Associate Director, TERI, to deliver his welcome address.
Good morning, distinguished speakers, experts, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I welcome you all to the 22nd World Sustainable Development Summit, TERI's annual flagship event, which is a Track 2 initiative introduced in the year 2001. The summit series has a legacy of over 2 decades of making sustainable development goal a shared vision. Today, we are gathered at the thematic track on the transition towards circular economy in the plastic sector. And I'm indeed grateful to all project partners who have traveled all the way from Australia and outside Delhi for this special session. Over the last few days, they had an extensive exposure visit in Jaipur and Agra, and I believe that they would definitely be sharing their interesting experiences with all of us. I'm delighted to welcome Ms. Leena Nandan, Secretary MOEFCC, who would be joining us a little late towards the end of the session, and Mr. Prashant Gargava, Member Secretary, Central Pollution Control Board, sir. We are expecting a few other dignitaries to join in the next few minutes as the plenary session is going on. The India-Australia Industrial and Research Collaboration on the Reducing Plastic Waste is an initiative supported by the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, where 6 organizations from both the countries, TERI, CSIR, and NERI, Development Alternatives from India, and University of New South Wales, University Technology Sydney, and CSIRO from Australia have come together with the ambition to enable innovation across the plastic supply chains through research and industry collaboration. The 3-year research exercise lays a foundation through metric and data development, technological interventions across different stages of the product value chain, identification of opportunities across different sectors, as well as on-ground demonstration of projects for circular economy transition. At the same time, the project explores opportunities of newer and sustainable materials that can also replace plastics while promoting complete circularity, furthering the ambition of India's flagship program on LIFE. I thank you again, and I'm really looking forward towards an exciting session of great deliberations and suggestions that, among others, will definitely make the roadmap document, which is one of the key outcomes we are expecting from this project, as well as the support that we are envisaging under the project in terms of the robust implementation of extended producer responsibility guidelines and advancing towards the mission life goals. So thank you so much again, and I again welcome you on to the World Sustainable Development Summit, the 22nd edition. And for the session's proceedings announcements, I again request Trinana to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhattacharya. This track is also an opportunity to present in front of you some of the developments achieved under the India-Australia Research and Industry Collaboration Project for reducing plastic waste in India. I request Dr. Heinz Schandl, Senior Principal Scientist at CSIRO, to present a few slides on the project.
Thank you very much, Trinayana and Shubik. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us. We're a group of people who are traveling from Australia to learn about the experience you have here in India, and it has been truly remarkable. I also want to thank especially Rita Dotpaka and Sinat Niatsi and Shobik, who have been leading the teams in India for our collaborative project. Over 40 researchers are participating in this research. Some of them are in the room. So thank you, everyone, for the honor to lead this project together with you for the last 2.5, almost 3 years. International collaboration is so important. We can learn from each other. We actually have to learn from each other because we're dealing with intractable problems, which are also global problems. Plastic is the point in case. It's a remarkable material, but we find it in places where we rather not want to have it. So let me see if this is going to work the way it's expected. It seems to do very good. When we started our project, the first issue we confronted was the question, how much plastic is there actually in India? Where is it used? Where does it flow to? Where does it end up? And as you can see from this picture, plastic is used in many sectors in the economy, and most of the plastic ends up in places where we rather not want to see it, which is in landfills and leaking to waterways and oceans. Plastics is not going to go away in India or globally, and as India further raises material living standards, we can expect there's going to be more plastic in the economy. So we need to manage it carefully. How do we do that? And this was the question we were asking ourselves in our project. And whilst we did a lot of research, we looked into the existing literature, we initially published papers, but the final point or the flagship output of our project is a roadmap for plastics, which we have jointly developed in participation with Indian industry and government and with communities. I can obviously not talk within the 8 minutes I have been assigned about all the different aspects of the roadmap, but I want to give you a quick overview of what the roadmap does. And then I want to talk to you about what can you in India do with the roadmap that we have developed for you. So first of all, there's an overall strategy developed through the roadmap. And it has some things that are very obvious. If we want to confront the issues with plastics in a circular economy fashion, we need to think about the material in a way that we keep adding value to the material many times over. But in order to be able to do that, we need to set a single clear framework of how we are going to engage with the plastic circular economy. We almost need something like a transition body. So if you want to move to a very different way in which we manage an industrial ecosystem with the bulk material flow, we need a transition body. We need to include all types of plastics. We need to recognize and engage all stakeholders across the supply chains. We need effective regulation that is streamlined, but we also need to, at the same time, set decentralized, locally relevant policies and goals. Every place will look different. We had the privilege to visit waste management and resource recovery centers in Jaipur and in Agra. And even of those two places, which are so close to each other, you can already see the different dynamics which happen at the local level. We need to integrate learning across supply chains, but also phase out plastics that are low value and should perhaps not occur in the first place. How can we make accessible recycling infrastructure and technologies that replace the technologies that we're using now, or those that are not yet available? And we need support for the circular economy, both in the procurement of governments and industry. We need policies and fiscal and tax incentives that allow this to happen. So in the end, you want to put it all together. And in the roadmap team, we come up with 7 key elements of the Indian plastic circular economy. 3 of those elements are related to the plastics material supply chain. They're dealing with the production, the design of products that use plastics, that incorporate plastics. They're dealing with consumption, with the way how business to business, business to consumer, and back into the economic process, going into remanufacturing and establishing the manufacturing industries that can pick up the material that is now ideally well sorted. Some beneficiation has happened. It might have been pelleted, but we need manufacturing that can now pick up the material and use it instead of virgin polymers. And that refers a lot to the recycling opportunities that we have here. But then nothing is happening spontaneously in society. It always needs well-designed approaches. And that's where the other 4 elements are coming in. The commercial viability, awareness and readiness, supportive infrastructure, and consistent compliance. So in a way, the viability of the kind of things that we can improve in the plastics economy, they hinge on whether the recycled products actually are competitive in the market. How do we achieve this? Or in other words, how do we foster the innovation that will underpin all the experiments, the demonstration, and the scale up that needs to happen in order to bring business opportunities to a place where they can actually start to replace the current ways of how things are done. So when you think of the roadmap and when you think of the 7 elements, they are all further unpacked in the roadmap. So the roadmap gives some clear indication of where the Indian business community, the policymakers, and the communities think we are at. Because there are many things in India we can build upon. There are things that are already working. And the roadmap represents then the joint view or expresses the view of the broader community of what could be achieved. You may then ask, once the roadmap is released, which I think is going to happen sometimes in May, what can then happen with the roadmap? If a roadmap just is a document that is left on someone's desk and is not further dealt with, obviously it hasn't been of much use. So when you think about a roadmap, you also need to think about an implementation plan. How can we implement the things that have been identified with the participation of industry and government of the things we can do in plastics? So how do we implement that? This includes increasing the abilities of digital tracking of polymer supply chains. Where is the material? What kind of quality has the material at every step? And think about the capacity that you have in India in the digital economy and link that up with the plastics material flow. And here is your global business model. You can be a leader in India in that regard because many other countries are lagging behind, including my own country, I would include. We also need improved metrics, data and indicators that will allow us to set targets. Targets are a very good vehicle to actually empower all the players in the ecosystem towards a common achievement. There are 2 recommendations which come out of the joint activity, which have a lot to do with the collaborative approach between India and Australia. One is the quest for a recycling modernization fund in India, which would be a fund that provides finances for a partnership between government and industry to speed up, accelerate the establishment of the recycling industry, to bring the technologies forward that are actually available globally and implement them in an Indian context. The second one is the Plastics Circular Economy Innovation Hub. How is experimentation going to happen? How are startups and businesses are coming together, whether it's in the digital economy or in the polymer economy? How do you encourage the commercialization of new approaches, new materials, new products, new processes? An innovation hub is an ideal approach to achieve that. Both approaches the Recycling Modernization Fund and Circular Economy Innovation Hubs are already tested in Australia and in some countries in the Southeast Asia region. So this is something I think India could really benefit from. But at the same time, whilst you aim for national standardization, we need to look at locally based experimentation. Demonstration is going to happen in certain places, and then we need scale up, scale out. And most of all, as a scientist and working with these remarkable scientists in India and Australia, we need science-based solutions for technologies, for business models, for policies that then industries and policymakers can pick up. So if we did all of this, we would be looking forward to something very ambitious and beautiful, which is a plastic circular economy in India. Is this an easy task? I don't think so. But when we present the roadmap to you in May this year, I hope you will pick it up and you will go with the recommendations. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Schandl. Next, we move on to the special addresses for the session. We have some very distinguished speakers with us who are leaders in their own fields. I request first Dr. Atul Narayan Vaidya, Director, CSIR NIRI, to deliver his address.
A very good morning to all the dignitaries present in this hall, of the dais, on the dais. Very good morning. And routinely, I cannot say thank to organizers because NIRI is a part of organizing team. So that particular prelude has not necessarily should be here. But anyway, it's a good opportunity to put forward our thoughts, my thoughts probably. And as a director of the institute, which is devoted to environmental research for last 60 years, more than that. A lot has been talked, and I have gone through a few slides which were presented. And yes, it is a must that plastic, there are two things. One is plastic to be looked into as a material. And when you look at plastic as a material, it has many virtues. Probably there is no, right now, there is no real substitute to plastic. There can be something near to plastic. It's waterproof, it's light, it's machinable. A lot of engineering developments have been done, not degradable. So on and so forth. And mechanical strength, everything is there. So what an engineer or any development would like to have a good material, plastic has most of those properties. But these properties also makes it a devil from environmental point of view because it's non-degradable, remains into environment for a pretty long time, pretty ages, some people claim in Jurassic time scales also. But and yes, it is a menace and it hampers with the natural systems in many ways, physically, chemically, and therefore plastic has to be managed. So there is no two minds about that, and there cannot be any discussion that plastic is not to be managed or to be managed like that. It's a problem, and it's a problem which has come out of the good properties of the plastics, very useful properties of the plastic. So the very first thing is whether we have, so I would like to flag 3-4 basic issues which are actually pertaining to circular economy of plastic, or for that matter, circular economy of anything. And policy and regulations, of course, Prashant Gargav is here and he will discuss about regulations further. But policies actually are to support regulations. And if you go in a very broad category, regulation will have 2-3 basic components. One is executable part. Second is, one is regulation, you put restrictions. There will be some executable part, or the way it should be executed. So EPR and all those things will be covered. But then there are certain basic technical issues which are to be looked into and which you cannot overlook for a long time. And I would like to flag those 3 issues in this short 5 or 6 minutes talk which I have been allotted. The very first thing is that we must look into the recyclability of the plastic, how long and how many cycles. one thing is that polymer will start losing its properties or structure or chain length, whatever you call. I'm basically chemical engineer, so I know a lot about that. This is not a forum to discuss that. But there will be a limit to number of recycles, probably 5, 6, because you keep on losing some properties every time you recycle. And therefore, any policy or any regulation or circular economy things will not be complete unless you address properly end of the life plastic. That is a major thing which normally we tend to keep it at the last. I don't say we are neglecting that, but we talk of collection of plastic, segregation and all other things. But this is a very teething issue which will be propping up after 4 or 5 years of circular economy in place or policies. You have to deal with end of the life plastic, and there can be limited number of ways to deal with that. That is number one. Number two, plastic cannot be generalized because you have a lot of variations into plastics. Plastic is a general terminology, but if you look into the methodologies, even right for engineering, machining and disposals, it has a different polymer properties, different polymers, different chemicals involved, and therefore each plastic, or at least a category of plastic, would need a different pathway for even for circular economy, even for disposal, end of the disposal. And there has to be a very, as has been said in the last point of your, it has to be a science-based solution, technology-based solutions. Otherwise, unless we address these issues, there cannot be a general solution. So end of the life plastic, different types of plastics, and even all the methodologies are to be fine-tuned to different types of plastics. So there can be a general methodology, and again I say that those who are well versed with partial differential equations, and which I give this, those engineers third year mein humne dekha hai, but when there was no math cat or no, in our times we used to have direct solutions. So there is a general solution and particular solution. So general solution is for the type of partial differential equation, and particular solution has to be actually sought for the particular situation. So we need that kind of, so some policies, some general roadmap may have general solutions, but particular solutions have to come for a typical waste or typical plastic. Third most important issues are that plastic is not simple plastic polymer. It contains so many other chemicals. And probably day before we were discussing with Dr. Prashant Garga that how when you recycle something, there are certain bad chemicals which are going to be concentrated further. I don't say they are very, very bad chemicals, but then they have potential risk or potential hazards when they cross certain concentrations. So physical, chemical, and this kind of restrictions will always be there on the recycling, and therefore this thing you cannot overlook in circular economy. And there are many such basic technical issues which you have to look into. Each topic can have a big lecture or a long lecture into this, but I really want to flag off these issues. And then basically plastic, end of the life plastic, where it goes, what is to be done with that? Third most important point, which actually I should have covered in the first, what should be the indicator? Now, a very simple question is that if we put circular economy in place, how do you expect the production of virgin plastic getting down? If circular economy is truly in place, there should be a time when there is a reduction in the production of virgin plastic. I don't see anything. Every now and then, as an institution in the environment, we keep on getting requests for environmental impact assessment for the increase in the production capacities. I never saw any industry or any big industries reducing the capacity, maybe for economic reasons or what. But then we are, on one hand, we are increasing the capacity of plastic production, and on second hand, we are talking of circular economy. This should match. That is, I want to flag this issue also. And probably there is increase in the demand as plastic is required in all sectors of life. There is an increasing demand due to increasing pollution. But such forums should also have a critical look at the factors. What is the real increase in the demand vis-a-vis circular economy, vis-a-vis the production capacities? So these are the three, four basic issues which I wanted to flag in this particular forum. So I think roadmap should take care of this. indirectly or directly. I don't expect 100%. So as you said, solution is not simple. It is really difficult solution. But at least we must have some insights into these things also in our roadmap. So that is all. Rest of the things will be discussed by other speakers. Thank you very much for patient listening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your words. Now may I request Dr. Ashok Khosla, Chairman, Development Alternatives, to deliver his remarks.
Esteemed friends and colleagues, I'm feel very privileged to be able to share a few thoughts with you on a subject that many of us have been working on for a lifetime. Heinz and I go back almost 15 years working on the whole issue of resources as members of the International Resource Panel. And we have been thinking about these issues from source to sink in many different forums. And today I think the roadmap is ready to be written as a first generation attempt to solve the kinds of problems that we have. Plastics are an amazing substance. They've brought so much wealth, so much good in the lives of both rich and poor. It's hard to imagine a life of a woman in a village without plastic products, buckets and mugs and lots of other things, just as it is hard to imagine a high-tech society like ours going to space, to robotics, and to almost everything needs one kind of plastic or another. A year ago, heads of state and ministers met at the UN Environment Assembly in Nairobi and agreed that by next year, we would have an agreement among all countries to eliminate plastic waste. And I believe that to do that, we really have to look at the whole issue from origin to destination of the plastics. As a product that has brought so much good. But you know, plastics are one of those in the chain of miraculous inventions of science that are really heading for trouble. We've seen this with freons, CFCs, which were a miracle product for all kinds of uses, foams and air conditioning and all kinds of other things, and yet they are now banned. We've seen the miracle of lead in gasoline, banned. We've seen the miracle of DDT for malaria control and many other things, banned. Now, if plastics are not going to be banned, we have to be much more creative than we have been in the past. We need to design out of the value chain the concept of waste in plastics. But as the previous speaker just said, that doesn't make sense unless you change many, many things. Change requires innovation. And the kinds of innovations I was thinking about last night, sitting at my desk, worrying about today's lecture, are actually a very large number of different things. I could count 10 major areas of innovation that we need. We need new industrial design models. We need new types of products. We need new technologies for making them. We need new plastic packaging methods. We need new business models based on systems, which I will describe in a minute, and new economic principles, new ways of measuring benefits and costs, and not externalizing them, but making sure that they're counted in a full cost accounting, full benefit accounting methodology. We need new business ecosystems and an infrastructure which encourage the adoption of more benign, both from a point of view of benefits to individual consumers as well as to the public goods and the environment. And we need new policy frameworks and public infrastructure. And basically, we need new behavior patterns. We need new consumption and production systems. And of course, ultimately, we need new ways of assessing and foresight mechanisms to, when we adopt a good new invention, we need to know what are the negatives and the positives that come with it. Let me give you a few examples to explain each of these new innovations. An example of new industrial design models we have to be based not only on circular economy principles, like reuse and recycling and upcycling and energy generation and synergies, but more exciting out-of-the-box ideas like synergies with non-plastic goals. Using, for example, let me give you a very interesting example, which has now been proved. For coastal areas, you could use the syngas from pyrolysis of plastics and combine it with the biogas from the methanation, what you might call the anaerobic digestion of algae from the sea, and get terrific gas, which can be used for synthesizing both new plastics and for using as energy. Now, the idea that when we're talking about plastics, we should also be talking about algae is not normal, and we need to be able to do abnormal things like that. The basic idea of new products, we need to make sure that we take account of the durability, the longevity of those products to make sure that you need less plastic over the long run, and adding high value to those products. New technologies, well, this is an area that's favorite for me. Bioplastics, made from biomimicry, from the 5 kingdoms of nature. It is now possible to use kitchen waste to make plastics in an economic and timely way by using fungus of the right kind. You mix the fungus with your kitchen waste or with any starch, raw material, feedstock, and you get terrific potential for making polymers. And I think we got to now look at nature to teach us how to avoid waste. There is, as all of you know, no waste in nature. There are 5 kingdoms. They eat each other's byproducts and detritus, and you have a very flourishing economy based on a cyclic use of resources. So I think we've got to go beyond simply looking at waste as a thing to manage and see how to make these plastics better from various kinds of ways. There's an amazing polymer chemist called Katia Bestioli in Italy, who's not only one of the best scientists in the world, but also one of the biggest business people in the world. And she has actually set up a company called Novamont, which has gradually bought over every gasoline refinery to make it into a bio refinery. And she gets thistle plants from Corsica, puts them into her refinery, and makes amazing plastics of various kinds. This is the kind of thing I think we need to do, both at large and at small scale. The plastic packaging is clearly a major area in its own right. It needs a lot more science and innovation, and we've got to now see ways to make plastic packaging more durable, less consuming of resources. The biomimicry approaches which use plastic waste from packaging, particularly food packaging, are now beginning to become very big. So we now need also to look at new business models. We've referred to some of those, and just now I think we've had a glimpse of one or two, but it seems to me they have to be now based on systems. And there are different kinds of systems. Some are how you make them decentralized and local, or at the meso and mini level. And the reason for that is plastics are very low density materials, and you transporting them long distances is costly. So it's best for that reason alone to set up decentralized processing systems. But there are many other good reasons for decentralization. And I think it was Michael's presentation made a very strong case for that for many other reasons. The collection to disposal all the way is something that I think we really need to look at as a business that generates value at every stage. If you go to Cairo, there's a whole community, almost an ethnic community, in a small township in Cairo called the Zebelin. And they're some of the richest people in Cairo. I mean, they make good money, and their sole profession is collection of waste. So there's good money in it. And if we design the business model right, there's no reason why it can't be a very enriching profession. New economic models. As I said, full cost benefit calculations are essential, life cycle. And the environmental and the climate and the economic factors need all to be brought together. We now need to understand that just disposing of plastics by generating energy is not necessarily economically viable. But if you do all the other calculations, the impact on climate, the impact on environment, then it becomes very useful. New business ecosystems, decentralized, local, synergistic, terrific opportunity for tripartite partnerships with a local startup, a local government body, and a large business, a large corporation coming together and doing what each one is good for, developing new economically viable solutions. So I think we need really to look at how to encourage all this. And in the case of EPR, we need really to see how the pricing will promote that. Now, new behavior patterns, of course, everybody knows we can't go on the way we are, and resource recovery is only one part of that. We've got to do a lot more. Finally, I think what every country needs, not just for plastics, but for almost everything we do, is new mechanisms for assessment and foresight, to be able to do all those things that are net positive and to avoid doing things that don't make sense. So the reduction of plastic wastes is one part of this desire to make a plastics economy net positive. And I think we need to do that in the ways that I've just described. The need to do some cutting edge technology development is now clear. And it seems to me that all kinds of institutions, government institutions, academic institutions, but also civil society institutions can play a strong role in that. Overall, the process needs to continue to contribute to the government's commitment. All governments are committed to net zero, and that is going to be possible only if the good part of plastics is taken care of and also the wastes are reduced. I would like to have talked a little bit about the informal sector and the role of gender equity and the role of need for health and hygiene in the kind of sector we're talking about, none of which has been adequately taken care of, but I've run out of time. So all I would like to end by saying, there are a lot of opportunities provided by what we're discussing for entrepreneurship, for developing decent and remunerative jobs, and leading to a just transition to the society we all aim for. Thank you.
Thank you for your words, sir. I regret to inform you that Mr. Sanjay Kumar, Director General DMEO, Niti Aayog, couldn't be here. He had to attend a meeting at the PMO. So we'll move on to the next segment. We have with us Dr. Prashant Kargava, Member Secretary, Central Pollution Control Board. May I request you, sir, to deliver the theme address for the session?
Thank you. Respected Dr. Khosla, Mr. Heinz, Dr. Vaidya, distinguished delegates. Good morning to all of you. At the outset, my compliments to the organizers for having included such an extremely important theme for discussion under this summit. The Honorable Prime Minister's global initiative, Mission Life, Life for Environment, besides other aspects, also lays emphasis on transitioning from throwaway culture to circularity. And this is much needed in the plastic sector because it has been creating a lot of hazards, environmental hazards or health hazards, has been choking our drains, polluting rivers, marine environment, soil, and also creating a lot of air pollution problems when burned. So this was certainly a priority in terms of managing the waste. As per the estimates, we have 4 billion tons of plastic waste being generated every year. There are more than 3,000 dump sites, which are millions of tons of waste containing almost 20 to 30% of plastic. This entire waste needed to be channelized for proper management. While we had plastic waste management rules since 2016 with amendments, the current EPR framework, it's very enabling, not only in terms of managing the waste effectively, but also bringing in circularity into the entire aspects. The EPR framework not only targets mandating reuse, but also mandates recycled material use, recycling for different categories of plastics. So it's very enabling, supports developing a business model, puts an ecosystem wherein on one hand, you have responsibilities for all the producers, importers, brand owners, year-on-year targets, progressive targets being given to them. On the other hand, by mandating or reuse or use of reused material, it also tries and addresses building infrastructure for recycling. So that's how it supports developing a business model. At CPCB, we have developed a portal. The entire process is starting with PIBOs, producers, importers, brand owners, getting registered onto the portal, capturing, again through a verifiable system, the quantity of plastics that they put into the market, then automated fixing of targets, providing different channels for fulfilling their EPR obligations, again capturing, as to how the EPR targets are fulfilled through a complete, automated audit system. So we are trying to, bring in a lot of transparency in the entire process. And there are, targets, as I said, progressive targets. Initially, there'll be some targets, and then it will, increase for different categories of waste, different for MLPs, for rigid plastics, for, different types of compostable plastics. So there are different targets given, end of life. So it tries and addresses all relevant issues. So far, more than 5,500 entities, PIBOs have registered onto the portal. Plastic waste processors also more than 1,500. And what we have seen is, of course, there could be some imbalance geographically, but otherwise, the target for this packaging plastic material to be recycled and then capacities that we have to recycle that much quantity, we have much bigger capacities. So the capacity gap problem is not there. It's only how do we ensure that this gets enforced properly. They are channelized to recycling. And I'm sure that the entire digitized mechanism that we have put in place will ensure that. There are also strong provisions for violations. Even for this registration, we are issuing a notice giving the final deadline till March 31st, and the willful defaulters, of course, will have to be dealt as per the law. So we are trying to bring in not only enforcement related issues, but also sort of enabling, facilitating, providing R&D support, providing support for creating infrastructure. So this entire framework is not just command and control kind of thing. It's also facilitating. And we have had multiple consultations with all the stakeholders while developing, and also to facilitate bringing them on board. So I think this is a big initiative, and this plastic model would essentially go for other waste sectors as well. We have brought in similar kind of EPR framework for e-waste, for tire, for batteries, and others else will follow. So I think with Honorable Prime Minister's call and then this kind of new EPR regime, we will be in a position to not only handle this waste, but also try and minimize the virgin resources, bringing in more circularity to the entire process. So I think there are multiple dimensions, but I thought I'll focus only on what CPCB has been doing in this area. But of course, behavioral changes, innovation, bringing in R&D, new technologies, new ways of developing polymers or compostable, of course, we have been promoting. There are more than 200 compostable plastic manufacturers have registered. Earlier, we used to register them for a limited period of 1 year or 3 years, and then they were supposed to come for renewals. But we have done it now for the lifetime. So unless until there is any change, they do not come back to us. So we are trying to facilitate as to how the alternatives also could come in. Then of course, I will not talk about the single-use plastic, but that also is one of the important initiatives that tries to address this important critical issue. So with this, I'll close. Thank you very much, for giving this opportunity, and I look forward to the discussions and support of each and every one of you, all the stakeholders, in not only managing the waste effectively, but also diverting this waste more towards reuse, recycle, and circularity. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your words, sir. We will start the panel discussion now. And as I read out the names of our distinguished panelists, I request him to take the seats on the dais, and I request the speakers here to take the seats on the front row. We'll just add a few chairs, and it'll take us 2 minutes for the arrangement. I request everyone to bear with me for that, please, so that we can all have a fruitful discussions. Manvi, may I request you to help me with the cards? I think 6 is enough. No, remove Nitin. I don't think Nitin looks like that. Apologies for the inconvenience in between. So we have with us Mr. Mahesh Patil, Chairman, Goa State Pollution Control Board, Dr. M. Abdul Kader, Director, CPAT Ahmedabad, Dr. Monique Ratimal, Research Director, ISF UTS, Mr. Amit Lahoti, Senior Commercial Director and General Manager, Asia, Ball Beverage Packaging, Dr. Medha Tatpadrikar, Director, Rudra Environmental Solutions, and Mr. Nitin Gupta. I think Mr. Nitin Gupta is not with us here. And the session will be moderated by Dr. Rita Dodalkar, Technical Officer and Science Secretary, CSIR NERI. Ma'am, I request you to take forward the proceedings as the moderator for the session. The floor is yours now.
So good morning all, and welcome to this panel discussion. We will understand that we have very limited time because this session is supposed to be ending at 1, but we will try to have another 20 minutes extension. Hi, Sovik, right? So we've been listening to a lot of views on plastic waste management in India and the transition of linear economy of take, make, waste to circular economy, which is very critical in India. Heinz told us that circular economic framework consists of 3 broad categories: production, consumption, which has boomed in the past few years, and then recycling, which can lead a way to the reduction in material flows across the value chain. So there are many practical challenges, including the recognition of plastic as a resource material. So my first question is to Chairman, Goa Pollution Control Board. Sir, what is your contribution as an implementation agency and a regulatory body in plastic waste management at the state level, and what are the challenges you face? Second question is, we are hinged on polluters pay principle for repudiation of costs associated with manufacturing of plastics. Instruments like extended producer responsibility. Through instruments like EPR, what is your take on the success of such a policy in the current scenario?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I think she has put me on 2 questions. One is what, as a regulator, what we do, and my colleague from sitting here. This is what, yeah. So I come from a sort of a, I don't know any.
You need to switch that.
I was a position or a place where, if you see all India, you see the last report, all India consumption of plastic is, I think the place I come from, Goa, is the highest per capita consumption of plastic is a what, if I'm not mistaken, is 1,300 grams, 1,300 grams per head as the highest. I think second is Delhi. So, the issue is most critical for us, for all of us, as we know plastic pollution, but however is more critical for us as a state is concerned. The issue, why this happens? Because we have another analogy where we have a floating population of 3 times of our population. So whatever we get plastic is from tourists. It's a tourism state, all of you know. And we have 15 lakhs population, we get around 7 to 80 lakhs tourists. So that's the problem. So what I come into the first is a challenge to how to get rid of it. And there cannot be a single solution. Our regulatory framework is, punish, but to whom? So I think sensitization of everybody, all stakeholders is most important. As we know, we have banned single-use plastic. We don't manufacture, at least I can assure you, we have 14 plastic manufacturing in Goa. We are not manufacturing, but it's coming from elsewhere. It's come from maybe adjacent states. And that's a very important problem for us to manage. And I think the solution would be, it's a comprehensive effort from everyone. One is, as a regulator, all states should not allow manufacturing. Number 2, it's a replacement, how we can replace. A lack of time, I'll not go more into that detail. Like in a circular economy we are talking, where you said replacement or alternative usage. I'll give 2 examples. One, initially maybe of 20 years ago, most of us were buying oil in a metal cans. The Coca-Cola, when earlier avatar, before 1970, we used to have a can where we used to pay up money and replace the bottle. Now the PET bottles have come. Third, typically again, I'm going to go example, a beer, a tourist come, would deposit 2 rupees when the beer costs 12 rupees. And you will return back the bottle. That is not an exam here, because you have a lot of cans, plastic PET bottles, and the economy has grown up. 2 rupees or 10 rupees doesn't make a difference. So it's a larger issue. Second aspect you said is the EPR. Yes, that is a concept which has come, which is helping, but I think we have to go a long way. A couple of brand users are coming to us, but it's a right step in the right directions. Probably, as earlier speakers have very rightly pointed out, technology, innovation, and coming together can help it.
Thank you, sir. So my next question is to Dr. Abdul Kader. He is the director of CPET, it's the Center for Petroleum Engineering and Technology. How do you see your contribution in bringing circularity in plastics technology and addressing the life cycle management of plastic in a broader sense?
Thank you for this opportunity given by the organizer. So we are now enjoying the comfort of the plastics. If you are immediately asked to stop, then life will become miserable. At the same time, excessive use of plastic is also miserable for the life. So we are in the dilemma whether to go or not to go in that way. So when we talk about the circularity, the conventional 3 R's, reuse, recycle, and recover. These are the conventional 3 R's. The new 3 R's have come, that is total 6 R's. That is reject, completely reject, or redesign. You can make the product redesign, or you can do another kind of things like recover. So in that sense, one is post-production, another one is the pre-production. 3 R's which is related to the pre-production and 3 R related to post-production. So in the circularity of a cycle, normally what we do recycling. Many aspects will be discussed on the recycling and mostly recycling through the mechanical methods. But when we recycle again and again, what is the end? That we can do the recycling indefinitely, continuously. It's not possible. We have the competition from the virgin material, which will have the very best properties, which is put on by the manufacturers. When we use recycled product, definitely it will not match with the property of the original virgin material. So we have a problem of using again and again recycling. But how do you make this life cycle and the circular economy in the plastic industry? The technology has come now for the solution like recover, convert the plastic, used plastic after post-consumption into a useful products, which may be beneficial for again producing the plastic back in the form of raw material, or it may be useful for producing the fuels or many other type of material. That is called it is recover. In the recovery, mostly chemical action is in place. Lot of chemical action converting through the pyrolysis, use of catalyst, use of microbial items. Now the technology has come, even without the use of the heat treatment, we can convert the used plastic into a fuel through the microbial action. So very selective microbial actions are in the place now. The technology is coming for selective microbial action, biotechnologies are supporting, artificial intelligence is supporting, and many other latest technologies are supporting for there is a recyclability and circular economy of the plastics. If you talk only about the recycling, the technology is hindered or hampered by a lot of obstacles. When we do recycling, we need to use a lot of water. Water will become polluted. Again, recycling of water, additional cost involved in the water treatment. Many things are there, but technology is now coming that you can use modern sensor technology, use of the near infrared technology, or we can use hyper selective or hyperspectral imaging technology, or X-ray fluorescent technology, where the sorting will be very much easier compared to the manual or the recent advancement in the sorting methodology. So altogether, anything is possible with the science and technology. So more research should be put. So we need to make the product design itself, which will be coming for certain period rather than for the lifelong. We know very well plastics are not biodegradable.
Yes,
it
sir.
will stay for 500 years or more. But when we make a material design in such a way that after the end of the product, it will completely undergo biodegradation. And third one is use of material which are available from the biosources, biopolymers, biodegradable polymer, compostable polymers. They are all the solution for some of the problem associated with the petroleum-based polymers. So more interest, more researches are taking place in the development of biodegradable, compostable plastics, and institutions like ISO or the BIS, they are all putting more efforts for making standards so that the end user or the industry can follow the standards in order to get more life cycle analysis, life cycle for the plastics.
Thank you. How many centers of CPET is there in India?
And in India, we have about 40 centers across the country.
Yeah.
Out of 40 centers, some of the research centers exclusively for the biodegradation type of
and the
research
kind
centers.
of facilities you have, they could really help in the quality of the recycled products if they were utilized for testing.
In fact, CPET is doing the awareness program for the recyclability in collaboration with the Central Pollution Control Board as well as MSME, and creating an environment for the industry to make alternative use of the plastics.
Yes.
That is one thing that is we are doing.
Yeah.
And the centers like in Ahmedabad, Bhubaneswar, Bangalore, and Chennai, we have exclusive R&D facility for creating the recycling technologies.
So in Heinz roadmap and what's next for in our project, what we have identified for plastic circular economy, we talk about innovation hub and locally based experimentation on a demonstration scale. So my question to Monique is that apart from technology, what is needed to enable circular economy for plastic? And second, how can research further assist with the development of circular economy in India?
Okay.
Thank you, Rita. So as we've heard, there's a lot of focus and interest in recycling and in technology. And of course, this is really important because it's still a great challenge ahead of us in terms of enabling effective collection and sorting systems and recycling. But even when we get that right, there's more that needs to be done. So a few people have highlighted some of the challenges around recycling, but also finding the secondary markets to use those products and how long you can use those for. But enabling those secondary markets requires innovation. It requires better collaboration between research and industry and movement towards sort of commercialization. It also needs networking and collaboration across supply chains. So a lot of these kind of soft systems are needed as well to enable technology to work effectively. Also, with regards to the circular economy, as various people have discussed, we need data collection, better data transparency and monitoring so that we actually can understand our progress. And we also need education and awareness raising so we can enable enforcement of good policy, so we can enable active participation in industry and communities in the circular economy. But if we step back a little bit from recycling, the broader picture of the circular economy is that it's not just about recycling. A few of our speakers have highlighted the other R's. We need to be thinking about reduction and avoidance, as well as reuse and repair and refurbishing. So these other aspects of the circular economy are also really important and also higher priority when we think about the challenge ahead of us. And we need to facilitate them. And I think some of those things like repair and refurbishment are actually done very well in India, and they are strengths. So bringing forward those existing strengths and building on what is happening here already. I think in terms of the redesign of products, we also need to consider the number of different types of plastics that are being produced. Others have referred to this already. With packaging, it's becoming extremely complex to sort and therefore find those secondary markets for plastics. And of course, all of these things require supportive policy settings and implementation from national down to the local level. Investment and financing for the circular economy is also critical, and a capacity building. So these are important factors. Would you like me to answer the second question as well?
Oh, we'll take a break for
Sure.
the panel discussion because we have the Honorable Ms. Leena Nandan with us. I think, Suvik, if it's all right, we'll have her keynote address first. Right? Right. Okay. So we have Leena Nanda, Secretary, Ministry of Environment and Forests and Climate Change.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And first of all, my apologies. I had intended to be here all through this session, which Ms. Duttapkar was moderating. But we have our webinar today on the budget announcements. And this year we have some 3 very significant announcements for the ministry. I will just talk about it very briefly. So very good afternoon to the delegates. And again, apologies for muscling my way into your session like this. But I really had to participate in this session. I was very keen when she shared the session details with me, because plastics is something that our ministry and in fact our country has really taken the lead on. And what is it that we have done so far? But you know, as Frost said, there are miles to go before we sleep. So this is just the beginning. We have, in fact, taken the initiative as a country. We were the first to call for a ban on plastics way back in 2019, brought that resolution to the UNEA, and have moved forward ever since then in the terms of, you know, the regulatory framework. So with effect from 1st of July last year, single-use plastics were banned. In the course of the year, we came out with the extended producer responsibility framework on various categories of material because we want to bring in the circularity. So plastic, the plastic products were the first on which the EPR regulations were notified exactly a year ago, February 2022 to be precise. And the EPR framework has been put into place very successfully by the CPCB, and we have Prashant here, the member secretary. Very good work has been done by the CPCB because this portal was launched in April last year. Already, the number of PIBOs on it is in excess of 5,000, which is really a vast number. The producers, the importers, and the brand owners. Number of recyclers are also constantly being added to this, because this portal offers the opportunity for connecting all the participants across the value chain. And these participants would then play their role in terms of the recycling. In fact, the first part of it is the segregation and the aggregation. Then, of course, the processing, recycling, generation of EPR certificates, and that completes the value chain, because then the onus of the EPR is on the PIBOs. But this would only serve the purpose to one extent. We actually have to look at the larger narrative. Who is producing this plastic? What will happen to the people who are producing this plastic? These are micro and small enterprises. What happens to the products which need this plastic in their packaging? And how do we actually make sure that the product, we take care of the issue from the inception stage itself? While banning and enforcement are required, but that is never going to be sufficient. In fact, that is only the trigger. The actual change comes when the system, the ecosystem itself gears up to meet that challenge. And that challenge has many dimensions. So the alternatives to those materials. And it is here that TERI plays a very significant role. And I'm very happy that they have taken this subject on. I'm told there is an action plan and a roadmap that they are developing. This would be of immense value to us, because we are looking at a roadmap from the point of view of not just what our Ministry of Environment is going to do. If we were to just sit back and say that we have put the regulations into place, we have put a framework, our job is done, that would never resolve the issue, that would never address the issue of plastic pollution. So therefore, what is it that we want from other stakeholders? What is the role that, let us say, the Ministry of Small, Micro and Medium Enterprises, what is the role that they would play? What is the role that financing plays in actually helping the transition? Because there will always be a bit of a gap in terms of the technology that the MSMEs need and the access to funds for using that technology. That is something that is a question that we need to address. So when we look at scientific alternatives, science-backed alternatives to this kind of plastic, we also have to look at who is going to use this alternative. It is good to come out with some better type of plastic, a different type of packaging material that actually is much less harmful in terms of the environmental impact. But I don't think the effort would end there. So just like the Ministry of Environment cannot sit back on its laurels and say, we have banned it, we have put the EPR framework, our job is done. At the same time, the scientific community led by TERI has to continue to ensure that whatever are the scientific solutions that are being worked on, how they can be mainstreamed, how policy level changes have to be brought about. So you have to work through advocacy and influencing the different ministries to take into account the recommendations that your roadmap is going to highlight. So we would be happy to push this agenda, to push this roadmap with our sister ministries, with the line departments and organizations. And therefore, as I said, the recommendations of this roadmap and whatever you are kind of arriving at in terms of the work that has already been done and the way to go, we would keenly look forward to it and to take forward those recommendations and those deliberations. Today, in our entire narrative, as I said, we do not look at doing away with the menace of plastic simply through the rule system. It's also the capacity building. As I said, capacity building of the enterprises that use plastics, either they manufacture it in some form or they use that plastic in some form of packaging, in whichever manner. The other aspect of it is also changing the demand of the consumer. And here I would like to emphasize the clarion call given by our Prime Minister, Lifestyle for Environment. And one of the key messages in Lifestyle for Environment is the need to not only discard SUP altogether, but also to do proper waste management. And it is this waste plastic that properly segregated, aggregated, and brought into the recycling stream. Ultimately, that success of all of that is going to actually lead to success of our efforts to deal with the menace of plastic pollution. Plastics is another thing which is gravely impacting our water bodies. So when it is burnt and the contamination it brings to the air, when it is let loose in water bodies, the way it is ruining our water systems, our aquatic systems, and the marine litter, which is on account of this humongous amount of plastic pollution that is everywhere. I cannot overemphasize the need for all of us to work together in a coordinated and a manner to bring together our energies and our resources and our strengths so that the roadmap actually is such which is implementable on the ground. And then to come back again to the solutions which I hope NERI has been working on, and you have collaborated with, I think you have partnerships with Australia, so you are working on a larger framework for addressing the whole plastic challenge and bringing it effectively into the circular economy system. I hope that, as I said, the alternatives that we arrive at, but also the affordable technology to make those alternatives manufactured at a larger scale. Unless there is economy of scale, unless the scope of the intervention rises to the extent that the producers are incentivized and let us say facilitated in accessing the technology and the finance, we would not have really been able to make a lasting difference. So I would like to simply say that while the ministry has made a lot of efforts towards plastic pollution, we need the participants of stakeholders like you to actually make this very effective on the ground. And we can constantly review with the state governments. We work with the ministries on a long-term basis, but ultimately it is the involvement of all stakeholders, which all of you represent, that can make our efforts a success. Today, the webinar that we have, that I've just come away from and which I'm going to rejoin, has actually talked about 3 aspects that affect the environment very deeply. One is the green credits. And here we are talking about different types of activities that are pro-planet, that are pro-environment in nature. How value can be assigned to these activities so that there is tradability of these green credits. And we are not talking about green credits in the simple terms of forestry, afforestation, greening, plantation. It goes beyond it. It talks about water harvesting structures, water bodies. It talks about waste management. So if there are good waste management systems in place, for example, a ULB which is doing very good work for plastic management, can we assign a green credit? And can that green credit then be traded on a robust market platform? And then can there be a demand in the corporate sector for that green credit? Unless there is a balancing of the demand and supply, initiatives like this will only remain at the thought and the concept stage. So that is one aspect that is part of our budgetary announcements, which we are trying to build all the stakeholder involvement in. The second thing is on mangroves. So mangroves are a very rich source of carbon sequestration, 10 times the potential, in fact, that terrestrial plantations offer, rich source of biodiversity, but most importantly, can offer a lot of community livelihood opportunities. How do we tap these livelihood opportunities? And when we sensitize our communities, we are also grappling, as I said, with the problem of marine litter. So again, plastic comes into this narrative. Therefore, if we are talking about green credit and proper waste management, if we are talking about the mangroves and the last budget announcement, which was about Amrit Dharohar, these are our aquatic systems, the water bodies that we have, the wetlands that we have in India, and we want to develop their cultural and social potential to the extent possible, and again, benefit the communities whose livelihoods depend on a robust aquatic ecosystem. Here again, plastic can become the spoil sport, can become the villain of the piece. So all our efforts towards maximizing the potential of our water bodies, of our mangroves, will come to naught unless we address the core issue of the challenge that plastic faces, the challenge that plastic poses to the environment. And this is a challenge which is being faced the world over. So showing a leadership role, bringing together thoughts, energies, and plans is something which I hope will be a takeaway from this session that you have just had today morning as part of the TERI Summit. And the last point that I would like to make is the need to encourage innovation and to build this innovation into the startup culture. We had done a hackathon a year ago, and out of these, when we went through the different ideas, two of them which we found really were very good were in terms of making alternatives to thermocol from rice straw. So that actually is not only an alternative to thermocol, it's actually a very good way of handling the problem that rice straw and the burning of paddy straw poses to the environment. And the other equally good alternative, which connects with the mangroves and coastal communities, is the solution that was offered for using seaweed to make alternatives to plastic. And in fact, that is something which has already been recognized and awarded by the ministry. We did an expo in June last year, in May last year in Chennai, where many of these initiatives were showcased. And we had also brought startups to that expo with the hope that here is a good idea for an alternative. And here is a startup which is looking to popularize a good idea and make it economically sustainable and viable in the long run. Is it possible to bring together these two very significant players? So this is an effort which our ministry had done. And I hope that the different ideas that are going to be shared and would have already been shared perhaps in the course of today's session would give further depth to our effort to bring together good models and connect them with the startups. We are happy to do that on an ongoing basis. As I said, the ministry does not want to sit back and say our job is done once we have notified the rules. We want to walk the extra mile. We want to take this narrative forward, engage in dialogues and partnerships with different ministries and departments, and we need the support and the active involvement of all the stakeholders like you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I have enjoyed being part of this discussion today in a very, let me say, brief manner, but I hope the roadmap would actually encapsulate all that you have studied and discussed and deliberated, and would help us to work together towards making all your ideas successful. Thank you very much, and all the very best.
Thank you, ma'am, for joining us despite your busy schedule. Before we move on to the panel discussion, we would like to play a short video from MOUFCC on lifestyle for environment in presence of the Honorable Secretary.
लाइफस्टाइल फॉर एनवायरमेंट, पृथ्वी पर रहने वाले प्रत्येक व्यक्ति को की कामना के साथ ही आज मिशन 558 विजन दुनिया के सामने रखा।
So that they understand mission life and maintaining environmental balance by adopting environment-friendly lifestyle. Naturally, these three things will help you on mission. First is the TERI of purpose. This will keep you happy and energetic. Second, this badge of life, which will remind people of life, lifestyle for environment. You can also give this badge to people who contribute for the betterment of our planet. And third, this bag of fun. Whenever someone harms the environment, you can take out eco-sustainable alternatives from the bag and inspire them to adopt mission life. Okay, mother. Now I will leave for a mission life. Together, we built, together we built, achieve this ambition. Just one mission, that's all. With the planet's protection, justice,
On behalf of all the organizers, thank you, Ms. Lina. Yes, thank you. Sorry, Monique, we were with you. And the second question, just for revision, was how can research further assist with the development of circular economy in plastic? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks, Rita, and thanks for that fantastic awareness-raising video and address. I would like to say that the research sector can play a really important role in collaborating with industry and also communities and government, particularly on the implementation side of things, because that's really critical now. It's obviously, the circular economy is obviously a very significant change to our waste and collection systems, but also to production and consumption. And research can help to find systems that are context suitable, that are most effective, that they're least cost, and research can also help with experimentation and analysis. There's just a couple of other points I'd like to make. So there's the informal sector that's playing a very important role in India. And I think that research can play a role in understanding the institutional settings that will enable their integration for their recognition and improve livelihoods. I also think we need to address in the research sector the big question of how, with sort of increasing incomes and consumption, how can we see reduction in plastic waste generation? And it's very difficult, but I think we need to tackle these big complex problems. And we need to think about substitutes and new business models and new modes of consumption. So those are some of the many ways that the research sector can help.
Yeah. So we have also talked about recycling modernization fund for India, and my next question is to Ms. Medha, who is in the recycling of plastic and very well involved. I would like to ask her to share her experience and also throw light on the material flows, whether there is enough, because we just heard that there is enough plastic. And so what are you, because you have a practical, experience.
Actually, yes, I work on a chemical recycling, and a lot of time people have, a lot of time people have this misconception that chemical recycling should be the first attack on plastic. It should work along with mechanical recycling. So whatever is not recycled by traditionally mechanically should only go for a chemical recycling. And in that sense, we don't get enough plastics because this is all thin, traditionally non-recyclable plastic. So all the waste pickers will take out the thick plastic, and the rest plastic usually ends up non-segregated or in the landfill. And segregating that, getting that back, the costs are huge. So, that's where the problem starts, and that's where you see that chemical recycling is not getting popular, or there are not many recyclers, even in India or even the world. Secondly, what we have found is ULBs, a lot of time they don't have the awareness of latest technologies. And, so you go there and they have no idea about how to do about it, how scientifically they can work on it, or how the flow of the material is. So a lot of time you have to go as a recycler and sort of find that out. And then, they will say, okay, if you want to do something, do it on the boot. Now, as a recycler, a lot of time you don't have money. So, what everybody was saying about the recycling fund, something like that will come, because whatever happens, technology costs money. So, that is where, we have a problem. And again, research, recyclers don't have money to do research. We do it in a smaller way, in our own thing. A lot of them don't have the access to the big institutes. Even coming to you guys, the costs are high. So as a recycler, it becomes sometimes very difficult. And what we have seen is things are changing though. People are getting aware about, plastic. People are trying to segregate. But unfortunately, there is no effective collection because it's still collected as part of your waste. Now, in Pune, we do differently. Now, the way we collect plastic separately, segregated. So we don't go every day. We go once a
You
week.
also have an informal sector with you, right?
We do have an informal sector, but we also have the waste generators. So from the waste generator, thick plastic goes to the informal sector, and whatever is non-recyclables comes to us. But then it comes clean, and it's simply because we adopted a different thing where we are going every 15 days and just collecting plastic. And this can be replicated anywhere. That's how we are trying to do. So, like you were saying, that it should be a decentralized model. We should be taken everywhere. I think that can work. And that's what we've been doing.
Example of small initiatives who can really make a difference to society. We have Mr. Amit Lahoti from Ball Beverages. And a question I want to ask to you is that what barriers and challenges do you see in scaling up the use of non-plastic alternatives to packaging in India?
Yeah, no, thank you. And I have the advantage of having listened to all the speakers and the panelists. And, firstly, for plastics, and I think as Dr. Atul pointed out at the start of, the elephant in the room is end of life for plastics. And whatever we do of reduce, recycle, the end of life challenges do remain unless we have a commercially viable solution around bioplastics and biodegradable plastics. So really, as we look at alternatives to plastic, and that's where we come in, of saying, how do we roll out alternatives to plastic? I have a vested interest. I work for an aluminum beverage packaging manufacturer, so I'll declare that. But we worked with TERI to look at life cycle assessments for different beverage packaging substrates, which is an independent peer review study, and which shows different packaging substrates and the various pros and cons of using, and aluminum in a way kind of stands out. Now, the challenges, coming to your question, is firstly around consumer awareness, which I believe, today the consumers, through awareness videos like this and many other awareness videos, are very well aware of what is not good. And in a way, I think what we need to now go to the consumers of talking about what is good and what should, if you tell me not to use a plastic bottle or a PET bottle, how do I carry my water and what do I need to do? So that piece of consumer awareness has to come right across from the government, from the manufacturers, from the retailers, across the supply chain, across the value chain, that awareness is probably one of the most crucial things which we can do. I think the other piece, if I highlight the challenges, and listening to very passionate speech by Ms. Lena, and there is just so much work happening around plastics. I think if we can just borrow 10% of that energy and focus on the alternatives, I think we will do it a lot of good service. So that's really where I feel.
Do you think that plastic can be replaced?
Yeah.
And if that is the key to the circularity in material consumption?
Yeah, I think for me to sit here and say in my lifetime,
at least can plastics be replaced? I think the answer, is fairly straightforward. No. But can we reduce it to a large extent and look at various applications where we use plastic and, kind of facilitate towards that? I will give you a very simple, clear example of today, water, PET water bottles or packaging water in the country. A year ago, we did not have legislation which allowed aluminum cans to be used for packaging water. Now it has taken us 3-4 years of advocacy and work with the government to ensure that non-transparent packages are allowed to package water. Now with that, and we are seeing adoption of aluminum cans globally into packaging various other substrates. So I think it's less about black and white. The world is not black and white. I think you cannot eliminate plastic, but let's identify places where we can reduce or eliminate consumption of plastic. And I genuinely believe there are various alternatives out there or segments out there where we can do. And there are other places where we have to then focus on what is probably we are seeing is a deposit return scheme, which I think Mr. Patel pointed out, of saying that 2 rupee deposit on the beer bottle is no longer effective. So how do we roll out effective deposit return schemes on the plastic and the various consumption of it, which is then going to, in a way, limit or reduce consumption of plastic?
This is a panel discussion which really invokes so much thought, and I think we can just go on and on. But we have a time schedule, and unfortunately, all other questions we will meet at lunch and talk to each other. And we have come to the end, and I thank my panelists for such thought-provoking, ideas and also showing a way forward. So thank you very much, and I request Dr. Vibha Dhawan to please address the gathering.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for giving me this platform to say a few words, and I'm sure you all are hungry as well, so I shouldn't say much, and especially when you had such an excellent panelist and discussion on it. My deepest gratitude to all the panelists to be with us and discussing. I won't name them individually, but thank you to all of you. We have discussed, and I attended quite a part of it, and plastic is something which I should say has become part of our lives, and we find perhaps, as rightly said by Amit, may not be in my lifetime. But I'll say, why don't we work towards that? Because we can achieve it. At least when I remember when we were children, there was no plastic bags, and we managed very well. Then started coming the plastic bags. And I still remember getting them from Bombay. You can fold them, you can keep it in your purse. And therefore, a sort of a bag, which was made up of polyester, will last with you perhaps for at least a year. It was something like that. Today, it is throw it away because they are very cheap. The other thing which I noticed many years back in UK, Tesco will give you a poly bag, which they'll say bag for the lifetime. So if you take a single-use plastic kind of a thing, they'll say it is 10-20 cents. But if you buy that was £5, equivalent to about 500 rupees. But then once that bag goes bad, they will replace it. And every 6 months, they'll come out with a new attractive design, something to match with the Christmas or whatever the season is. And of course, you can't simply go and change your bag. It has to be torn. It has to show that it has been used. So usual buyers also, rather than simply buying, they will say, give me that £5 one, because then it is forever. It is not 20 cents each time that I have to pay. So that way collection also works very well. The other thing which you just mentioned about the aluminum cans, The problem is that we are not becoming responsible, each one of us, because what happens the moment you buy Coke or any of these soft drinks in a PET bottle, they are far cheaper than buying them in the can. It is not the can manufacturer who is getting the price for it. It is not that the can is more expensive. It is that we consider that as premium packaging. So we have to come out of it as well. And as responsible citizens, we have to say we have to move away from it. The other point which I would like to make, and the film which was shown just now, Prakriti, I feel that children, they perhaps can show us the way. And I'll share something personal. I have 2 grandchildren. So one day when there was ban on single-use plastic, so my daughter was telling them, don't throw, because she was packing cake for them. And she said, don't throw it in the bin because now single-use plastic is banned. And immediately the answer was, Mama, then why are you giving me in this? And he rushed to the kitchen. He opened the drawer and he picked up the right kind of box in which cake could go. So therefore, once they get the message from the school and their teacher had told them, immediately they look for alternatives. Alternatives may be little difficult today, but we do have. There are technologies, and of course, there was discussion on biodegradable plastic. And I think that also is like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And one example I like to give, again, something which TERI had done. We are working on a project on biofuels and biocommodities and getting lipids from alga. Now, best of the strains, they give you anywhere from 40 to 45% of lipid. But most, if you want good growth, you have to compromise somewhere at 20% of the lipid. What do you do with the remaining 80% of the waste? And there is the work was done by IIT Guwahati, and they have a division on sustainable polymer production. They could make biodegradable plastic out of it. So what you really have to do, whatever waste material you have, can that be converted into a polymer which can substitute plastic? And there are ample opportunities. With nano biotechnology, nanomaterials, again, you can create or give the kind of strength which is required or which is given by the plastic. So there are alternatives. First of all, we have to change our mindset, and that we have to say no. And I think if each one of us at home also, if we say, I'm not going to use plastic, perhaps we can achieve this goal. And the moment you go for biodegradable, there is also an added advantage, because this being rich in organic constituents, it helps the microbial growth, it improves the soil microflora, it helps in composting for other products as well. So it becomes a win-win situation. So therefore, we all have to realize that it is a big problem if it continues. And rather, when we are talking of oceans and so on, perhaps it is also entering your and my food chain. And it's going to have negative impact on our health, which we can't afford. And over there also, it is extremely important that plastic, first of all, we reduce its usage, and whatever is used is collected. And while we say it is difficult, I'll say it's not impossible. Again, practiced, because what happens, you have these garbage collector, you have your maids at home. The moment they know that the PET bottle will fetch them even 10 paisa, they would like to collect and give it for recycling. So we also need to have places where you can get them collected, so that you know those will be used properly, reused, recycled, and so on. So there are solutions. So I'll again like to thank all of you for being with us, and best of luck. I'll say maybe next year when we meet again, we should say India as a country has reduced usage of plastic by so much of percentage, and so much of plastic is being recycled. Thank you. Thank you so much. And
Thank you, ma'am, for your words. I thank all the delegates and speakers for sharing their insightful experiences with us. And I want to say that lunch is served at the Margosa Lawns, India Habitat Center. Please join us for the same. And also that there's another thematic track on recycling infrastructure that is happening at the Maple Hall starting at 2 p.m. So it would be very nice if you join us for that after your lunch. Thank you.